What's up, Samurai? We are back as well, and today we're going to be going through the costumes that are available on the test server at the moment that I'm recording this. These are going to end up being new costumes for every class. I don't know if I'm going to have every class recorded by the time this video goes out because some of the resources are quite difficult to get. I'm going to have to try and grind some of them on the live server and then export my account onto the test server, and it's a whole thing. Of course, I'll try to have YouTube shorts of each of the individual costumes, but this is going to be the dedicated video. So this is the Knight costume. Knight means rejoice. This is actually pretty dang cool. This is going to cost you these resources, so it's actually considerably cheap, save for the golden souls, obviously, and I mean 50,000 flux, whatever. But as far as the costume is concerned, it's pretty cool for the Knight. I don't really think, it doesn't really have too much going for it in terms of VFX. I mean, it's the Knight, so it never really does, but I like it, actually. I didn't like it at first just because the whole cross of two different colors to me just reminds me of the Heroes update where they really tried to push all of that stuff, and it's just what I wasn't the biggest fan. So then there's going to end up being the Pirate Captain costume, and this is going to end up being the cost for it, including these weird resources, which is found inside Quality Compost Heap and Superior Compost Heap. So I guess that was related to gardening. I just don't remember ever getting those items because it's probably been years. Not my favorite Pirate Captain costume, honestly speaking. It's all golden, which does make me think of some nostalgic things with N64 games, because usually they would end up having like a gold costume be the reward for maxing out the game or whatever. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of it though, frankly speaking. Our little bird is kind of cute though, because he's basically Gonda, but as a pigeon or whatever. And then we've got this little guy right here, ignore where he's shooting. And then, let's see, what is this one? Just a little stand-in guy. It doesn't say anything on the back, which is kind of like, whatever. And then, of course, the ultimate ability, which, again, another beautiful golden cannon. It does seem like the cannon balls are... No, they might be the exact same. Problem is that there's not any different VFX near as I can tell. Like, it's just the same old explosions, but... whatever, Pirate Captain, go burr. So next we got the Ice Age costume, which is going to cost you these resources. Again, fairly cheap. The basic canned food can be a little bit annoying, but generally speaking, guys, it's fairly cheap to craft this costume, despite the resources being a little bit of a problem just because it's fishing stuff. And it's basically just underwater, like you're covered in coral and stuff like that. You've got these swimming goggles on, which I love. Really cool costume, actually. It's another bubble costume, so the VFX are pretty much just gonna be the same ones that we've seen from, I think, the Bubble Gunslinger, if I'm not recalled. If I recall, and then of course that spin attack, which is from a Revenant costume, and then a beautiful bubble VFX for the actual barrier, which, I mean, hey, still looks great. Now, the Shadow Hunter, unfortunately, I don't have the resources to craft because it is going to cost 3 Starfire Dragon Fragments, which is the worst Dragon Fragments to get in the entire game. So shoutouts to Miss Rhett for being able to craft the costume. It's a pretty dope Shadow Hunter costume, all things considered. Excuse my face cam in the corner. I didn't have my face cam on and I didn't realize I didn't turn it off for the sake of the video. But anyways, the costume actually does have some unique effects, which is pretty neat. Overall, I don't know if I like it over the Renewist costume that I'm already rocking, just because I like the colors on my current costume more. But it is a really, really cool, high-quality Shadow Hunter costume, that's for sure. And then this is going to end up being the Fey Trickster costume. Thankfully, most of the resources are from Fey Wilds, outside of the Golden Soul, again, being the most valuable of all of these items. The costume is... I don't know. I'm gonna admit I'm not a fan of the Fey Trickster style, man. Like, it just, I don't know. A fairy isn't cool to me, you know? It just never has been, never will be. But the VFX are kind of cool. It seems like it's similar VFX to other costumes that we've seen, if I'm not mistaken. It might even just be the vanilla costume colors, honestly speaking. But let's see what our ultimate looks like, which, I mean, yeah, whatever. It's just kind of the same old as far as Faye is concerned, but I mean, it's still cool. Then we got the Candy Barb costume, which this one is gonna suck for some people because it requires sentience shards, which is from rampages and beacons and legendary tomes and greater neon caches. I mean, nowadays you probably have a lot of these stocked up anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, honestly speaking. But it's weird to suddenly just force in items that were from the Heroes update, but it makes sense because look at this guy. It's pretty dope, actually. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the gray, and it's really difficult to get gray looking good, but it looks good. VFX, as far as I know, is just blue spinning VFX, which means, you know, it's good, it's appropriate. That effect doesn't end up changing, unfortunately, even though that one does. And then we get a whole bunch of bananas covering our characters, just because, yes, I like bananas. I do appreciate how it's kind of a thick boy. Like, he's got some big old shoulders. Then we've got the Neon Ninja costume, which, ooh, you Neon Ninja mains are gonna be excited for this one. Obviously, the cost is I mean, the Somber Souls kind of sucks, but whatever. The costume, though, I think this is one of my favorite vanilla Neon Ninja costumes. Whoops, I'm not wearing a weapon. One sec. There we go. Oh, it's actually just a tiny little kunai. Oh, interesting. I might be stretching it a little thin here, but this looks really freaking close to my my Neon Ninja costume from a few years ago. You know, the Shadow Dagger costume or whatever. I mean, obviously it's quite different and it's a different color palette and stuff. It's just the purple cape. That's what it does for me. But I don't know whether or not this is from a other video game or whatever, but either way, I mean, Neon Ninja costumes are almost always good. And this one is no exception. It's beautiful because it actually makes the Neon Ninja look a little more buff rather than just, you know, squishy boy that he normally is. VFX don't seem to change much, if at all, unfortunately, but whatever. It's still all there and it's still all great. Gunslinger mains, all two of you. This is it's high tiered resources, mostly the tier 5 Moon Grotto stuff and the tier 5 from, you know, just normal geode caves, whatever. These resources aren't too bad to get off of the market, but unfortunately you might be stuck buying like a bulk sum because they're just not cheap anymore. But either way, here's the Gunslinger costume. The helmet, I know for a fact, is like, well, I don't know for a fact, but it's a reskin of another helmet. Either way, cool costume. Good that Gunslinger has one of these because Gunslinger doesn't really have many costumes like this. I actually appreciate all these costumes because at the very least, they're all very, very unique for the classes. Like, we don't have a lot of costumes like this for Gunslinger, where it's kind of this spaceman theme. You know what I mean? If I'm not mistaken, this helmet, it might not be like a 1-to-1 reskin, but I think this is the hero's outfit for Vanguardian. Either way, this is going to end up being the ultimate, so it's just the electric VFX reused. But I mean, either way, Gunslinger mains rejoice. Another costume on the way. So next we've got the Draco, and at the moment I didn't have the Bismuth Dragon fragments in order to get the costume. I do have the ability to craft the costume now when it ends up coming to live server, but shout outs to my buddy Multi. He ended up showing me the Bismuth Dragon, which, as you can see, is pretty cool. Not as cool as the more recent Pufferfish Draco costume, in my opinion. But, I mean, obviously, that's subjective. The crafting components are going to end up being these. Boomeranger's costume, which is probably the cheapest as far as resources are concerned so far. It's a pink costume. It's a pretty bird. It's kind of disgusting. I kind of like it just because of how stupid it is. Like, this is totally like a Joe costume if he still played Trove. I don't know if he does anymore, but either way, you know, the VFX are at least color appropriate, so can't really complain. Bomb, you know, big old pink, purple, whatever confetti thing. Let me also just swap over my sword from Neon Ninja. The sword is going to end up being another gigantic feather thing, and this one's actually kind of neat just because the VFX kind of trails behind the sword. Otherwise, it's all basically the same, just pink VFX. Then we got the Tomb Raiser costume, which once again is heroes themed, similar to the Candy Barb's costume. This is going to end up requiring sentient shards, logic loop, whatever. And yeah, isn't this cool? kind of interesting and weirdly nostalgic to have like this heroes stuff coming back into the game. I don't know if the devs have just been sitting on this for that long or if someone just designed one of these costumes more recently, but it's a pretty cool costume for Tomb Raiser, similar to Candy Barb. I'm not the biggest fan of the whole gray thing, but I think that it looks really good. And then if our little babies would stop running off, they're tiny little skelly babies. Then we got our Class Gem ability, which literally exploded midair. Oh dear God, he dies so quick. And then our ultimate ability, unfortunately, you know, they're all kind of attacking constantly because these training dummies are here. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool costume for Tomb Raiser. I don't think I would ever end up using it outside of just getting the mastery, just because I have my favorite types of color palettes. Moving on to the Revenant, the basic resources are pretty easy. The Mighty Soul Tangle, for those of you that don't know, I gotta give a shout out to you guys who ended up letting me know in chat. Basically, these are gotten from composting Shadow Tower boss trophies. So Shadow Towers kind of serve a purpose, I suppose. Thankfully, I just had enough of these Shadow Tower trophies in reserve on the live server, so I was able to just take a bunch of them, loot collect them, compost them, not loot collect, and then just export my account to the test server to craft the costume. And I really like this costume. This might actually be one of my favorite Revenant costumes. It looks fairly similar to other Revenant costumes that we've seen, but he just looks so powerful, you know? Like, this truly feels like a end game costume for the Rev, and I really like it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any unique VFX, but I mean, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. Now, Lunar Lancer, similarly to the Shadow Hunter, is also going to cost Starfire fragments in order to craft. 3 Starfire fragments to be exact, which means that you mastery farmers out there are going to have 6 Starfire fragments in total in order to craft both the Shadow Hunter and Lancer costume. But Lancer mains, you can just kind of check it out. It does make sense that it costs Starfire fragments because, I mean, just look at this costume. It's pretty cool for the Lancer, honestly. It's just the Starfire Dragon, but as a Lunar Lancer, essentially. I know that I don't really have the best angle of this and all the attacks and stuff, but either way, I really enjoy it. I, again, don't know if this is my favorite costume for the Lancer, but I'm sure somebody's gonna enjoy it. So next is the Chloromancer costume. This one I was able to bang out pretty quick, even though it, you know, is on the test server. The only difficult resource was the Moonlight bulbs, which I was able to get that in maybe like 10-20 minutes or something like that. It was fairly quick. The problem with Moonlight bulbs I need to address is that they will be removed from your inventory when you go offline. So if you get disconnected or whatever, it just, yeah, otherwise they're just all over the place. I found a lot of them in Peaceful Hills and Desert was the easiest for me. And then the rest of the resources is just garbage, honestly. For an absolutely amazing, immaculate Balefire dragon themed costume for the Chloromancer, this might be my favorite Chloromancer costume yet. Just because look at this thing. Like, who thought to give it the Draco's costume and somehow make it look cooler than the Draco? Like, I gotta say, Chloro has some of the most swag costumes in the game, despite the fact that you don't really main the Chloromancer as much anymore. So we've got our shooting plant is literally a little dragon that shoots stuff. He's so cute. He's adorable. And then this is, I don't even know what that is. It should be a dragon spinning around in circles. And then if we use our ultimate just to throw down like the quick ones, you can see it's just bigger variations of the same thing, which, I mean, again, they look fantastic, I gotta say. But yeah, this is an amazing costume. Next, we got the Dino Tamer, which is once again another Heroes themed costume. So odd that we're getting all of these Heroes things when the update has nothing to do with the Rampage and stuff. Honestly, I'm okay with it. I just think it's very strange. It's good to actually see resources from long since past being reused again. And you can see it's not a bad Dino Tamer costume. I have never been a fan of the Heroes theme, you know, where it's this red and blue heroic character stuff. But I mean, as far as a Dino Tamer costume is pretty dang dope, you know? Like, again, I don't know if I would ever end up using it. The net, though. Ooh, isn't that weird? I love it just because it's so strange. And then I'll try my best to get my little dino babies, but unfortunately, we might not be able to see all of them just because the game can be dumb like that. Our ultimate ability, you can see, is very, very strange. Like, actually weirdly so. Okay, there's the little guy. I guess that's supposed to be the tanky one, if you even call it that. There he is, the little raptor attack. He's kind of cool. Either way, it's a very colorful costume, which is strange considering that our minions are not as colorful. Why has he got a weird... I think that's supposed to be a laser sight, not a horn. Then there's the Vanguard costume, which I didn't actually have the resources when the costume was first on the test server, but I do have them now, so I get to craft the costume for you guys. And oh my god, I think because it's purple, but also just the visual style of the costume, this is probably my favorite Vanguard costume by far. It's just so badass and cool. Like, there's just something about the shading to all of the purple and stuff. I mean, purple's like my favorite color, so obviously I really enjoy this costume, but my god, dude, it's such a cool costume. The VFX are slightly changed, but generally speaking, it's kind of the same as the Comet costume. Then we've got the Bard, which once again is an extremely cheap costume, all things considered. And the Bard does not have a costume like this. He's a spaceman. Looks very similar in style to one of the Air Spaceman costumes. But if I'm not mistaken, this is supposed to be Daft Punk, right? Right? Maybe I'm crazy. Which I think is so appropriate to have a costume like that for the Bard. Bard's got some swag too. It's not my favorite class in terms of gameplay, but man alive, this class just is so cool. And we actually have custom VFX for it. That doesn't happen often, dude. The Bard rarely ever gets any VFX change. It even looks like it's a 3D pulse that shoots out of us right at the forefront. So that's pretty cool to see. The star, you know, whatever. The music, it's just the same old, same old. Yeah, just the audience. That's a little bit too bad. The ultimate never really gets different VFX. However, we've got a very nice glow about our character while we have the song playing. So that is unique. That is new. And it looks like it's a DJ spinning table. Could be. I don't know. It's a pretty cool costume though, honestly. And lastly, we've got the Jack-O-Larion Solarian costume. This one is... It's pretty expensive just because of the Phoenix motes. Phoenix motes are basically just found rarely in Sundered Uplands from bosses, invaders, and dungeons. I'm not saying that I grind, Sundered Uplands that often, but I have put in a pretty significant amount of time to the 5-star dungeons in Sundered Uplands, which I'm pretty sure Phoenix motes spawn in those as well. And as you can see, it's this 10's nothing to bat an eyelash about. Like it's pretty difficult to get. The rest of the resources are whatever, but it's kind of worth it, right? Like Solarian and even just any class in Trove, this is probably one of the most unique costumes I've ever seen. Take that as you will. I'm not saying it's my favorite costume, just in terms of, I'm not the biggest fan of the black and orange, but it looks good. And it's very unique and very strange because we don't see the legs on the costume, which means that it's supposed to be like kind of floating around, whatever. Where's our little bird brain? There you are. Bird brain's right there. He looks kind of stupid. The shot VFX, of course, is going to end up being orange as well. Then there's our main shots. Then there's our number 1, which all basically just looks the exact same as it normally does. But again, it's just such a strange costume where we actually have like, is that supposed to be our spine coming out of the back and then holding up the Jack-O-Lantern head? Oh, hold up. We need to give ourselves headless. There it is. Okay, that's pretty freaking weird, but I get it. It's supposed to be, what's his name? Well, it's not supposed to be him specifically, but it's kind of like the Headless Horseman type of thing, where our head is supposed to be hanging off of this, I think, like this ornament, because he doesn't have a head, right? I don't know. Either way, that's so freaking weird and so unique. Either way, that's gonna do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully you ended up enjoying today's video. And if you did, smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want, support the channel, and have yourselves a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen.